The text message glowed on my phone screen at 2 a.m. I hadn't been sleeping anyway. Mom, I think it's best if you don't join us for the trip to Silver Palm Resort next month. Amanda's parents are coming, and there's just not enough room for everyone. I hope you understand. I stared at my daughter Claire's message, the blue light illuminating the darkness of my bedroom. Not enough room? At Silver Palm? The same Silver Palm Resort with 6 oceanfront restaurants, 3 infinity pools, and 312 luxury suites. The resort I had quietly purchased 4 years ago after my investment in a small tech startup exploded. Beyond anyone's wildest predictions? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The same resort where I personally designed the penthouse suite to have 4 master bedrooms specifically so my family could visit someday. I tapped my phone against my palm, contemplating how to respond. I could simply tell her the truth, that I owned the entire property. But something stopped me. This wasn't the first time Claire and her husband Greg had found convenient excuses to edge me out of family gatherings. Last Christmas, they claimed their house was being renovated. My granddaughter's ballet recital? They forgot to tell me, until the day after. This pattern had been building for years. Maybe it was time I understood exactly what my daughter really thought of me when she believed I wasn't in the room. I typed back a simple reply. I understand, sweetheart. Have a wonderful time. I hadn't always been wealthy, far from it. For most of Claire's childhood, I was scraping by as a widowed mother working 3 jobs to keep our tiny apartment and put food on the table. My husband Michael had died when Claire was only 4, a drunk driver, an icy road, and suddenly I was alone raising our daughter with nothing but a mountain of medical bills and a life insurance policy that barely covered the funeral. I still remember the smell of the diner where I worked morning shifts, grease and coffee and bleach all mixed together. I'd rush home to change into my receptionist uniform for the dental clinic, sometimes picking Claire up from school on my lunch break, letting her do homework in the staff room until my shift ended. Evenings and weekends I cleaned houses, my hands perpetually raw from cleaning chemicals. Claire never went without, though. I made sure of that. When she needed braces, I picked up extra shifts. When her class took a trip to Washington, D.C., I sold my mother's antique silver to cover the cost. College? I worked every holiday, birthday, and weekend for years to build her tuition fund dollar by painful dollar. I wanted Claire to have every opportunity, to never feel the limitations I had grown up with. "You're working again?" she'd ask on Christmas mornings, her teenage voice thick with accusation as I put on my coat to head to the 24-hour pharmacy where I could earn triple pay. "Just for a few hours, honey. Open your presents and when I get home we'll have our special dinner," I'd promise, kissing the top of her head. She didn't understand the exhaustion that seeped into my bones, the way I would sometimes cry in my car between jobs, setting a timer on my phone to give myself exactly 3 minutes before putting on my game face again. She couldn't comprehend the fear that lived in my chest. Fear of an unexpected bill, a layoff, an illness that might derail everything I'd worked for. And I was glad she didn't understand. That was the point. Her life was supposed to be easier than mine. The turning point came when Claire was in her sophomore year of college. She'd met Greg, a business major from a good family, as she kept emphasizing. His parents were college professors with summer homes and European vacations, a world away from our working-class existence. "Mom, when you meet Greg's parents, maybe don't mention the diner or the houses you clean," Claire suggested during one of her rare visits home. "Just focus on the receptionist job. It sounds more professional." The request stung, but I nodded anyway. "Whatever makes you comfortable, sweetheart." That same week, a woman whose house I cleaned mentioned a friend looking for early investors in a startup. Beth was a retired executive who'd taken a shine to me over the years, always leaving me coffee and sometimes sitting to chat when I finished cleaning. Eleanor, you're the hardest working person I know, Beth said. You deserve a break. This guy has a solid business plan, and I'm putting in $20,000 myself. If you could scrape together even $5,000, it might give you some breathing room down the road. $5,000 might as well have been $5 million. But I did have one thing: the small life insurance policy my parents had left me when they passed. I'd been saving it for an emergency, and with Claire nearly through college on scholarship now, maybe I could risk it. I invested every penny, $7,200. It was terrifying. For 3 years, nothing much happened. The company grew slowly, developing some kind of specialized software for hospitals. I nearly forgot about it, too busy working and helping Claire plan her wedding to Greg. A wedding where I met Greg's parents for the first time. Martha and Richard Miller arrived in matching cashmere sweaters, greeting everyone with continental kisses and stories of their recent trip to the Amalfi Coast. Martha looked me up and down, taking in my department store dress I'd saved 3 months to buy. Claire mentioned you work in customer service? She asked, her voice dripping, with the practiced politeness of someone determined to be charitable to those less fortunate. I'm a medical office receptionist, I replied, using the job title Claire had approved. I didn't mention that I'd been promoted to office manager the year before. How nice, Martha said, already scanning the room for someone more interesting to talk to. I suppose that explains why Claire is so grounded. Throughout the wedding planning, it became clear that the Millers saw me as someone to be managed and minimized. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled when I was supposed to be working, and when I asked if it could start an hour later, Martha sighed, dramatically. Eleanor, dear, that's when the restaurant could accommodate us. Surely you can take off work for your only daughter's wedding events. I rearranged my schedule, losing a day's pay in the process. The wedding itself was beautiful, but painful. Claire looked radiant, but I felt like an outsider at every turn. The Millers had insisted on paying for most of it, something I couldn't compete with, which meant they made most of the decisions. We're just helping Claire have the day she deserves, Richard explained when I questioned why my small list of family friends had been cut from the guest list. The venue has limitations. At the reception, I was seated not at the family table, but at a distant table with distant relatives, and the college friend no one had seen in years. When I caught Claire's eye across the room, she quickly looked away, engaged in animated conversation with Martha. 2 months after the wedding, I received a call that changed everything. The startup was being acquired by a major tech company. My $7,200 investment was now worth $32 million. I nearly fainted in my kitchen, clutching the phone as the financial advisor explained what was happening. I had options. I could cash out now or convert to shares in the parent company with potential for further growth. What would you do? I asked, my voice shaking. Honestly, if it were me, I'd keep half in cash and convert half to shares. The parent company has an excellent track record. I followed his advice, and over the next 5 years, watched in disbelief as my converted shares quadrupled in value. By the time Claire gave birth to my granddaughter Lily, I was worth over $8 million, but I told no one. Not even Claire. Why? At first it was fear. I'd been poor for so long that I was terrified of losing everything. I wanted to be absolutely certain the money was real and stable before making any changes. Then it was observation. I noticed how Claire and Greg had begun to drift away once they became established in their careers. The Millers had helped them with a down payment on a beautiful home in an exclusive neighborhood. Greg had joined his father-in-law's financial consulting firm. Their lives were becoming increasingly entwined with Martha and Richard's social circle. Meanwhile, my invitations to Sunday dinners were frequently declined. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. We're just so busy, Mom, Claire would say. Maybe next month. I started testing the waters, mentioning small financial concerns to see how they'd react. The dental clinic might be cutting back hours, I said once during a rare lunch with Claire. I'm a little worried. Mom, you should have saved more for retirement, Claire replied with a hint of irritation. Greg says everyone should have at least 6 months of living expenses set aside. There was no offer of help, not even temporary, just judgment. When Lily was born, I asked if I could help with childcare. Actually, Martha's going to watch her 3 days a week, Claire explained. She has so much more experience with babies. And you know, their house has that perfect nursery and the big yard. The message was clear. I wasn't good enough. The years of sacrifice, of giving Claire everything I possibly could, had somehow translated into me being someone she was now embarrassed by. Finally, I made a decision. I wouldn't tell Claire about the money, not yet. Instead, I would quietly reshape my life and see if she even noticed. I retired from all my jobs, telling Claire I'd found a better opportunity managing a friend's small business. I sold my apartment and bought a modest but beautiful condo in a nice area, explaining I'd gotten a really good deal because it needed work. I started dressing in higher quality clothes, though nothing flashy or obviously expensive. Claire barely registered any of these changes. She was too busy with her own life, her own ascent into the upper-middle-class world the Millers occupied. And then, 4 years ago, I made the purchase that would change everything. I'd become friends with several successful investors through Beth, my former cleaning client turned financial mentor. One of them mentioned a struggling luxury resort in the Caribbean that had enormous potential, but was badly mismanaged. With your attention to detail and work ethic, you could turn that place around, my new friend suggested. Plus, wouldn't it be nice to own a place where your family could visit? The idea took root. After extensive due diligence with a team of experts I hired, I purchased the Silver Palm Resort on the small island of St. Celeste for $12 million. I spent another $8 million renovating it, traveling there frequently to oversee the transformation. I told Claire these trips were house-sitting for a wealthy friend who needed someone reliable to watch their vacation home. That's so nice, that people trust you like that, Claire said dismissively, clearly thinking I was being used as free labor rather than enjoying a business owner's privilege. Under my guidance, Silver Palm became one of the most sought-after destinations in the Caribbean, known for exceptional service and beautiful design. I created a management structure that allowed me to oversee operations remotely most of the year, visiting quarterly for in-person reviews. The resort had just been featured in Luxury Travel magazine when Claire texted me about her upcoming trip there. Apparently, Greg had received the vacation as a bonus from his firm, though I strongly suspected the Millers had pulled strings to make it happen, as Richard golfed regularly with Greg's boss. Silver Palm? That's supposed to be wonderful, I'd replied, feigning ignorance. Yes, it's super exclusive, Claire texted back. Martha and Richard have stayed there twice. Of course they had. I remembered them. Martha had complained about the thread count of the sheets, and I'd had our entire linen inventory upgraded the following week. Richard had mentioned to the bartender that the single malt selection was pedestrian, and I'd personally selected 30 new options for our collection. Perhaps I could join you? I'd suggested. I'd love to meet you there, spend time with Lily. That's when the excuses began. First it was, let me check if we have room. Then, we've already planned all our activities. Finally, the 2 a.m. text. There simply wasn't space for me. At 62 years old, after a lifetime of putting my daughter first, I was being told I wasn't welcome on their perfect family vacation. So I made my decision. I would go to Silver Palm, not as Eleanor the embarrassing mother who cleaned houses, but as Ms. Reynolds, the owner conducting a surprise inspection, and I would see firsthand exactly what my daughter really thought of me. What happened next would change our relationship forever. I arrived at Silver Palm Resort 3 days before Claire and her family were scheduled to check in. The island air embraced me as I stepped off the private shuttle, warm, fragrant with hibiscus and sea salt. Gabriella, my resort manager, waited at the entrance, tablet in hand and worry creasing her forehead. "Ms. Reynolds, we weren't expecting you until next month," she said, falling into step beside me as staff rushed forward to collect my luggage. "Change of plans," I replied, accepting the cold towel and welcome drink from a smiling attendant. "My daughter's family will be arriving on Thursday. They don't know I own the resort, and I'd like to keep it that way for now." Gabriella's eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded without questioning me. That's why I'd hired her. Impeccable discretion and unflappable composure. "Of course. How would you like to handle this?" "I'll stay in my usual suite, but register it under my maiden name, Walsh. Make sure all staff know I'm here for a routine inspection, but under no circumstances should anyone mention I'm the owner. If anyone asks, I'm a hotel consultant evaluating the property." As I sipped my drink, passion fruit and ginger, perfectly balanced, I gazed out at the turquoise water. The resort sprawled before me, a masterpiece of understated luxury. Thatched roof, bungalows nestled among flowering trees, the three-tiered infinity pool cascaded toward the ocean, creating the illusion that you could swim right into the horizon. Everything gleamed with care, from the polished teak walkways to the hammered copper lanterns that would illuminate the property at night. All of this was mine. Not that anyone would guess it looking at me, a 62-year-old woman in linen, pants and a simple blouse, silver hair cut in a practical bob. I'd worked hard to maintain my anonymity. The business world knew the resort was owned by Reynolds Hospitality Group, but few knew that the entire conglomerate consisted of just me. My suite, officially called the Orchid Suite, but known among staff as Ms. Reynolds's rooms, occupied the eastern corner of the main building with sweeping ocean views. I'd designed it myself, a sanctuary of natural materials and clean lines. Whitewashed walls, rattan furniture, azure accents that mirrored the sea. The 4 master bedrooms each had private bathrooms and balconies. I'd created it thinking of family gatherings, Claire, Greg, Lily, perhaps more grandchildren someday. I spent the next 2 days reviewing operations, meeting with department heads, and walking every inch of the property. The resort was running beautifully. Our chef had recently earned regional recognition for his innovative use of local ingredients. The spa director had expanded our wellness offerings with tremendous success. Occupancy rates were at 94% despite our premium pricing. I should have been thrilled, but a heaviness followed me everywhere. Each time I approved a menu item or suggested a service improvement, I thought about my daughter enjoying these luxuries while believing I wasn't good enough to join her. On Thursday morning, I stationed myself in the open-air lobby lounge with a perfect view of the reception desk. I wore large sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat, ostensibly reviewing reports but actually watching for their arrival. Gabriella had arranged for the Miller party to be checked in by Marco, our most experienced front desk manager. At precisely 11:42 a.m., they arrived. First came Martha and Richard, stepping from an airport SUV with the confidence of frequent travelers who expect the best. Martha wore white linen from head to toe, a chunky turquoise necklace her only concession to tropical vibes. Richard sported a golf shirt and pressed khakis, already scanning the property with the critical eye of someone constantly comparing and evaluating. Claire emerged next, her chestnut hair, so like mine before it turned silver, pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She looked beautiful but tense, checking her phone while simultaneously directing the driver about their luggage. Greg followed, carrying 7-year-old Lily, who squirmed to be put down so she could get a closer look at the koi pond near the entrance. My heart squeezed at the sight of my granddaughter. Her visits to my condo were rare and always supervised, as if Claire feared I might somehow contaminate her with my middle-class habits. The final passenger surprised me, a young woman in her 20s with a perfect blonde chignon and crisp coral shirt dress. She carried a leather portfolio, and seemed to be giving instructions to both Claire and the bellhops simultaneously. "That's Paige," Gabriella murmured, appearing silently at my side. Ms. Miller made several special requests through her. Apparently, she's Mrs. Miller Sr.'s personal assistant. Martha had brought her assistant on a family vacation? Then again, it made perfect sense. Martha had always treated people as accessories, useful objects to enhance her comfort and status. I watched Marco welcome them with professional warmth, offering champagne and cool towels while they completed check-in formalities. Martha dominated the conversation, with Richard occasionally interjecting to ask about golf and fishing options. "We've reserved the Hummingbird Suite for your party," Marco explained. "It's one of our premier accommodations with 3 bedrooms. Claire frowned. 3? But there are 6 of us. The master has a king bed for you and your husband, the 2nd bedroom has 2 queens for your parents, and the 3rd has a queen bed for your daughter," Marco explained smoothly. "Your confirmation indicated 5 guests, but we can certainly arrange a rollaway for your assistant." Martha waved her hand dismissively. "Paige has her own room. I specifically requested it when I called to add her to our reservation last week." Marco consulted his tablet, confusion briefly crossing his face. I knew why. Martha had indeed called, but her request had been impossible to accommodate during high season. Our reservations manager had explained we were fully booked and suggested, "Paige take a room at our sister property 10 minutes away." Martha had grudgingly agreed. "I apologize, Mrs. Miller, but we're at full capacity. We arranged transportation for Ms. Bennett to our Palmetto Bay Suites as discussed with our reservations team." Martha's face hardened. "That's completely unacceptable. Paige needs to be on-site and available. Surely you can find something. Don't you keep rooms available for situations?" By situations, I knew she meant VIPs or emergencies. And yes, we did. Specifically, my suite remained officially unbooked despite my presence, in case of ownership visits or last-minute distinguished guests. Marco glanced toward Gabriella, who gave an imperceptible shake of her head. "I apologize, but we truly are fully committed. Palmetto Bay is lovely, and we provide shuttle service every 30 minutes. "This is ridiculous," Martha snapped. "We're paying premium rates. I want to speak with a manager." Gabriella stepped forward, her professional smile firmly in place. "I'm Gabriella Torres, the resort manager. I apologize for the inconvenience. But Marco is correct. We're completely booked through the weekend." Richard placed a calming hand on his wife's arm. "Martha, it's fine. Paige can manage at the other property." But Martha wasn't finished. She lowered her voice to a stage whisper that carried perfectly to where I sat. "Richard, this is exactly why I insisted on handling the arrangements myself. If we'd let Claire's mother recommend places as she offered, we'd probably be staying at some 2-star motel with plastic furniture and buffet dinners." Claire didn't defend me. Instead, she laughed nervously and said, "Mom means well, but her idea of luxury is a room with a mini-fridge and HBO." The casual cruelty of the comment stole my breath. 7 years of single-handedly supporting our family, of working until my feet swelled and my back spasmed, of choosing Claire's needs over my own time and again. And this was how she saw me. As someone with cheap taste who meant well, but couldn't possibly understand true quality. Greg joined in. "Remember when she kept going on about that fancy restaurant for Lily's baptism? It was literally an Olive Garden." They all laughed, even little Lily, though she couldn't possibly understand the joke. "God, I'm so glad we didn't bring her on this trip," Claire added. "She'd be taking photos of everything and asking the staff about their discount days." My chest tightened as if bands of steel were constricting around my ribs. I'd suggested Olive Garden because it had been a special treat in our financially strained life, a rare restaurant meal that Claire had once loved. When had that shared memory transformed from a testament to my efforts into something she found embarrassing? Martha's complaints continued as the staff began moving their luggage. And the room better not be near the kitchen or elevator. I, specifically, requested a quiet location with privacy. The last time we were here, there was a family with children who were absolute monsters. Gabriella assured her the Hummingbird Suite was perfectly situated with excellent views and privacy. I knew she was right. I'd personally overseen the soundproofing of all our premium suites during renovation. The group finally moved toward their accommodations, but not before I overheard Claire say, "I feel a little bad about Mom. She sounded really hurt when I told her she couldn't come." For a moment, my heart lifted. Perhaps there was still some empathy there, some recognition of our bond. Then Martha replied, "Darling, you're too soft. Eleanor raised you to be independent, so let her be independent too. Besides, this place is wasted on someone like her. She wouldn't appreciate it properly." "You're right," Claire sighed. "She'd probably spend the whole time telling the housekeepers they missed a spot. It's mortifying." They disappeared down the pathway toward their suite, their laughter floating. Back to me on the sea breeze. I sat frozen, the tablet on my lap forgotten. A server approached to offer me a fresh drink, and I accepted mechanically, not even tasting it when I took a sip. All these years I'd told myself Claire was just busy, just establishing her own life, just temporarily influenced by her in-laws' materialism. I'd convinced myself that underneath it all, she still valued me. Not for what I could provide, but for who I was and what we'd meant to each other. Now I understood the truth. To my own daughter, I was an embarrassment, a reminder of a past she wanted to forget. Someone to be managed and minimized and, whenever possible, excluded. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Not here, not now. I had built this resort from nothing. I had transformed myself from a struggling single mother into a successful businesswoman through sheer determination and one lucky break. I deserved respect, if not from my daughter, then at least from myself. "Ms. Reynolds?" Gabriella approached cautiously. "Are you all right?" I straightened my shoulders. "Yes, thank you. Please have dinner sent to my suite tonight. I'll be working." Late. That evening, alone in my beautiful rooms with the sound of the ocean rushing through the open windows, I allowed myself to grieve. Not just for today's hurt, but for years of slights and dismissals I'd excused or overlooked. For the gradual erosion of the close relationship Claire and I had once shared. For the grandmother I wanted to be but wasn't allowed to become. I cried. Until my eyes swelled and my throat ached, until the pillowcase grew damp beneath my cheek. Then I washed my face with cold water, ordered chamomile tea from room service, and began to plan. Claire had excluded me from her vacation because she thought I wouldn't fit in, wouldn't appreciate the luxury, would embarrass her with my presumed lack of sophistication. She believed I was still the overworked cleaning lady who had raised her, a role she now found mortifying rather than admirable. I could reveal myself immediately as the owner, forcing them to confront their assumptions and prejudices. The fantasy of their shocked faces held a certain vindictive appeal. But that would be too easy, too brief a reckoning. They would apologize insincerely, make excuses, and ultimately learn nothing. Our relationship would be irreparably damaged without any possibility for genuine understanding. No, I needed something more subtle. A way to observe them further, to test the depth of their dismissal, and perhaps, just perhaps, to find a path toward honest reconciliation. I spent the rest of the night crafting my approach, and by morning I had my plan. First, I called my most trusted staff members to a private meeting in my suite. Marco, Gabriella, Elisa from housekeeping, Anton our head chef, and Dominic, who managed all resort activities. These 5 people knew my true identity and had worked closely with me for years. "I have an unusual request," I told them once everyone was assembled. "My daughter and her family are currently staying in the Hummingbird Suite. They don't know I own Silver Palm, and for now, I want to keep it that way. I explained what I'd overheard and what I intended to do. Their expressions shifted from surprise to understanding to determination. "We will follow your lead, Ms. Reynolds," Gabriella assured me. "Whatever you need." My plan began that very afternoon. Claire had booked a beachside yoga session while Greg took Lily to the kids' club, and the elder Millers went golfing. I arranged to attend the same yoga class, arriving early to claim a spot near the back. I wore a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses again, my hair tucked up to change my silhouette. Claire arrived just as the class was beginning, claiming a mat up front without glancing at the other participants. The instructor, Maya, who had been briefed on my presence, led us through a gentle vinyasa flow. I kept an eye on my daughter throughout the session. She moved with natural grace, something she'd inherited from her father. When Maya offered a challenging balance pose, Claire executed it perfectly, while several other students wobbled or opted for modifications. Pride swelled in my chest despite everything. Whatever her flaws, she was still my daughter. Still the baby I'd held through countless fevers, the child whose nightmares I'd soothed, the teenager whose heartbreaks I'd witnessed. After class, Maya approached Claire. "Beautiful practice," she said. "I noticed your alignment in Warrior 3. You've obviously done this before." Claire beamed at the praise. "Thanks. I try to maintain my practice at home, but it's hard with a 7-year-old. "I understand," Maya replied warmly. "Actually, we're having a special sunset session tomorrow for advanced practitioners, by invitation only, on the private beach. Would you be interested?" "Absolutely," Claire said, clearly flattered by the exclusive invitation. Maya glanced in my direction. "Great. This lovely lady will be joining us as well. She's one of our regular guests." Claire finally looked toward me, offering a polite nod without really seeing me. Without recognizing her own mother sitting just 15 feet away. "Perfect," Claire replied, already turning back to gather her things. "I'll be there." That evening, I reviewed the Millers' dinner reservation, a table for 6 at our finest. Restaurant, Azura. The beachfront dining room was my personal favorite, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and menu that showcased the island's finest seafood and produce. I arrived early, taking a corner table partially screened by a large arrangement of bird-of-paradise flowers and monstera leaves, perfect for observation without being obvious. The Millers were seated at one of our best tables, positioned to capture both sunset and moonrise over the ocean. Martha immediately summoned the sommelier, embarking on a lengthy discussion about wine regions and vintages. "We visited Bordeaux last spring," she informed him, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Richard is quite the connoisseur." Richard nodded sagely, though I knew from our previous wine list consultations that most guests who truly understood wine didn't feel the need to announce it quite so forcefully. I watched as they ordered, Martha and Richard selecting the most expensive items on the menu, of course. Greg followed their lead, while Claire chose more moderately priced options. No one selected the local specialties I'd specifically added to highlight the island's culinary traditions. Lily sat quietly, absorbed in a tablet despite the no electronics policy discreetly noted on the menu. When their server gently suggested some child-friendly options, Martha intervened. "She'll have the petit filet, very well done, with sauce. On the side. And plain steamed vegetables, nothing green. And don't bring bread. We're watching her carb intake." I frowned. Lily was a perfectly normal-sized child who should be enjoying vacation treats, not worrying about carbohydrates at age 7. Throughout dinner, I noticed how Claire deferred to Martha in nearly every conversation. When Claire began to tell a story about Lily's school play, Martha interrupted with an anecdote about a Broadway show she'd recently attended. Claire immediately fell silent, her story abandoned. It reminded me of family dinners from my own childhood, where children were to be seen and not heard. I'd deliberately raised Claire differently, encouraging her opinions and stories, asking questions to draw her out. When had she reverted to this meek, accommodating version of herself? Midway through their main course, Anton the chef emerged from the kitchen to greet several tables, a nightly tradition. When he reached the Millers, he spoke with genuine warmth. "How are you enjoying your meals this evening?" "The halibut is overdone," Martha stated flatly. "And the sauce is too acidic." I knew for a fact the halibut was perfectly cooked. I'd helped develop the recipe with Anton, adjusting it until the fish remained moist while still flaking beautifully. Anton didn't miss a beat. "I'm terribly sorry to hear that, madam. Please, allow me to prepare something else for you." "No, I'll eat it," Martha sighed dramatically. "We don't have all night to wait for a replacement." "The rest is quite good," Richard offered magnanimously, as if bestowing a great honor. "Thank you, sir," Anton replied, not a hint of irony in his voice. "Please let your server know if you need anything else." As he turned to leave, Martha added, "Actually, the woman at that table," she pointed toward a nearby diner, "she has some kind of seafood stew that looks interesting. That's our callaloo, madam, a traditional island dish with seasonal seafood, coconut milk, and local greens. It's a house specialty." "Bring me that instead," Martha commanded. After Anton left, Richard chuckled. "That's my wife. Always knows exactly what she wants and how to get it." Claire laughed too. "Martha taught me so much about speaking up. In restaurants, Mom always just took whatever they brought even if it wasn't right." "Eleanor is a pushover," Martha agreed, not bothering to lower her voice. "It's why she's always been taken advantage of. No backbone." "No backbone?" I gripped my water glass tightly. I'd raised a child alone while working multiple jobs. I'd navigated poverty, illness, and isolation without ever giving up. If that wasn't backbone, what was? "Remember when that contractor completely botched her bathroom renovation?" Greg added. "She paid him anyway because she didn't want to cause trouble." Claire nodded. "She's just not comfortable with confrontation. It's generational, I think." I remembered that contractor. He'd done poor work, true, but he was a single father struggling to keep his business afloat after his wife died. I'd negotiated a partial refund and helped him connect with a senior contractor who could mentor him. Last I heard, his business was thriving, and he'd sent me a heartfelt card thanking me for not reporting him to the licensing board when I had every right to do so. That wasn't weakness. It was compassion, nuance, seeing beyond my own immediate needs to the larger human context, something the Millers, with their entitlement and demands, seemed incapable of understanding. By the time they finished their desserts, all specially modified per Martha's instructions, I had a clearer picture of the dynamic. Martha dominated, Richard supported, and Claire and Greg sought approval by aligning with them. Lily, meanwhile, barely spoke, answering questions with single words while staring longingly at the ice cream sundae being enjoyed by a child at another table. I watched them leave, Martha already criticizing the decor in the lobby lounge as they passed through. A profound sadness settled over me, not just for myself, but for Claire. Somewhere along the way, she had traded authentic connection for social approval, substituting Martha's materialistic values for the more humanistic, ones I'd tried to instill. But the evening had also solidified my resolve. Over the next few days, I would orchestrate a series of encounters designed to test whether there was anything left of our relationship worth salvaging, or if it was time for me to finally let go of the daughter who had already let go of me. The advanced yoga session was scheduled for sunset on the private beach, a crescent of pristine sand accessible only through a winding path lined with flowering plumeria trees. I arrived first, helping Maya arrange the mats in a semicircle facing the ocean. The sky had already begun its transformation, streaks of amber and rose bleeding into the blue. "Are you sure about this, Ms. Reynolds?" Maya asked quietly as we positioned blocks and straps near each mat. "Completely sure," I replied. "And remember, today I'm just Eleanor." Other yogis began to arrive, a mix of regular guests and local practitioners who frequented our classes. I'd positioned my mat slightly apart, angled so that Claire wouldn't immediately see my face when she arrived. She appeared just as the golden light was at its most magnificent, wearing designer activewear and carrying a monogrammed water bottle. Her hair was perfectly braided, not a strand out of place. She looked polished, affluent, and completely at ease in these luxury surroundings. Maya guided her to the mat next to mine. "Claire, I'd like you to meet Eleanor, one of our regulars." "Eleanor, this is Claire, a guest staying with us this week." I turned, removing my sunglasses, and watched my daughter's face transform from practiced social politeness to utter shock. Her mouth opened slightly, eyes widening in disbelief. "Mom?" she whispered, glancing around as if checking whether anyone had heard. "What are you doing here?" I smiled calmly. "Yoga, apparently. Hello, Claire." Her cheeks flushed deep red. "But how?" I thought. "We can talk after class," I said as Maya called everyone to begin. "Let's not disturb the session." For the next hour, I moved through the poses with the grace that comes from 3 years of dedicated practice. I'd taken up yoga as physical therapy after a minor back injury, then discovered I loved the mental clarity it provided. Claire kept sneaking glances at me, her concentration clearly broken. When Maya led us into a challenging arm balance, I executed it perfectly while Claire toppled over. After the final namaste, Claire practically lunged toward me, gripping my arm and pulling me away from the group. "What is going on?" she hissed. "You said you understood you couldn't come." "And I'm not part of your vacation," I replied evenly. "I'm here on my own, completely separate from your family trip." "That's not," she sputtered. "You can't afford this place. Did you follow us here to make some kind of point?" A flicker of anger sparked in my chest. Is it really so impossible to believe I might be staying at a nice resort on my own? She ran a hand through her hair, disheveling her perfect braid. "Mom, be serious. This place is over $1,000 a night. You were cleaning houses last year. I told you I found better work." "Not that much better," she scoffed. "What, did you win the lottery or something?" Several of the other yogis glanced our way, curious about the tense conversation. Claire immediately lowered her voice, ever conscious of appearances. "Look," she said, "I don't know what you're trying to prove, but you can't just show up like this. Martha and Dad will be mortified if they see you here, crashing our family vacation." Dad. She'd called Richard Dad. The casual word landed, like a physical blow. Michael, her actual father, had been Daddy until the day he died. I'd kept his memory alive through stories and photographs, making sure Claire knew how much he had loved her. Now she bestowed his title on Richard, a man who had done nothing but judge me and distance my daughter from me. I took a deep breath. "I'm not crashing anything, Claire. I've been planning this trip for months. It's completely coincidental that we're here at the same time." She looked skeptical. "Right. And I suppose this advanced yoga class by invitation only is coincidental too." "I've been attending Maya's classes for years," I said, which was true. She invited me specially. Also true, though only as of yesterday. Claire stared at me, confusion warring with suspicion. "Years? Mom, you never mentioned yoga." "There's a lot I don't mention, Claire, because you rarely ask about my life." Her expression hardened. "That's not fair. I call you once a month for exactly 12 minutes, usually while you're driving somewhere. You talk about Lily's activities and Martha's latest charity function, then you have to go." Claire glanced at her watch. "Speaking of which, I need to get back. We have dinner reservations." "At Azura again?" I asked, unable to resist. Her head snapped up. "How did you know that?" I covered quickly. "I had dinner there last night." The couple at the next table mentioned they were returning tonight because the food was so exceptional. Claire's suspicion faded, replaced by her default condescension. Well, yes, it's quite good, though probably more sophisticated than what you're used to. I nearly laughed out loud. I'd personally selected the executive chef after an exhaustive search, tasting hundreds of dishes before deciding on Anton's perfect balance of technique and heart. I managed just fine, I said mildly. The callaloo was particularly delicious. She frowned. What? Traditional island stew. Your mother-in-law ordered it last night. Now Claire looked truly alarmed. You were watching us? I happened to be dining at the same time. Silver Palm isn't that large, Claire. She glanced around nervously. This is getting weird. Just stay away from us, okay? I don't want to explain to Greg and his parents why my mother is suddenly here. Ashamed of me? I asked directly. Don't be ridiculous, she said, but her eyes slid away from mine. It's just complicated. We came here to relax, not deal with. Family dynamics. Family dynamics. Such a sterile term for the growing rift between us. Fine, I said. I won't approach your group, but I won't hide if we happen to be in the same place. Mom, please. I paid for my vacation just like you paid for yours, Claire. I have every right to enjoy it. She sighed dramatically. Fine. Whatever, just don't make a scene. As she turned to leave, I called after her. Claire, does Lily still love butterflies? She paused, thrown by the non sequitur. What? I guess so. Why? No reason. Enjoy your dinner. I watched her hurry away, already texting frantically on her phone, no doubt warning Greg about my unexpected appearance. Instead of feeling hurt, I felt strangely calm. The confrontation had confirmed what I needed to know. Claire was embarrassed by me, unwilling to even acknowledge our connection in this upscale setting. It was time for phase 2 of my plan. The next morning, I placed a call to Dominic, our activities director. I'd like to arrange something special, I told him. A private butterfly garden experience for my granddaughter. Today, if possible. Of course, Ms. Reynolds, he replied. The sanctuary just got a new shipment of chrysalises. Several are expected to emerge today. Shall I set it up for 11 a.m.? Perfect. And Dom? Make it seem like a random upgrade, a last-minute opportunity. That opened up. By 10:30, I was hidden behind a one-way observation window in the Butterfly Sanctuary's small educational center. The space was magical. A glass-enclosed garden filled with tropical flowers and fluttering wings of every color. I'd helped design it as an extension of our children's program, wanting to create experiences that went beyond the typical resort kids club. At precisely 11, Lily arrived with Claire and Martha. Greg and Richard had gone deep-sea fishing for the day. Dominic greeted them warmly. Mrs. Miller, Ms. Miller, and Miss Lily. Welcome to our butterfly sanctuary. We had a last-minute cancellation for our private emergence experience, and when I saw there was a 7-year-old in your party, I thought you might enjoy it. Martha immediately looked suspicious. What's the cost? We didn't budget for extra activities. It's complimentary, ma'am, Dominic assured her smoothly. We like to offer these spontaneous upgrades to enhance our guests' stays. Martha seemed mollified but still wary. Well, I suppose that's acceptable, though we had planned to attend the mixology class at noon. Claire crouched down to Lily's level. Would you like to see the butterflies, sweetheart? Lily, who had been staring at her shoes, suddenly looked up with the first genuine enthusiasm I'd seen from her. Really? Can we really see them? Of course, Dominic smiled. In fact, you're just in time to watch some butterflies being born. He led them through the garden to a special display where rows of chrysalises hung like tiny jewels. Several were visibly moving, the outer cases thinning as the butterflies inside prepared to emerge. These are blue morpho butterflies, Dominic explained. They're one of the largest butterfly species in the world, with wings that can spread up to 8 inches. When the light hits them just right, they shine like blue mirrors. Lily pressed her face close to the display, completely entranced. How do they know when to come out? That's an excellent question, Dominic replied. The butterfly inside can feel changes in light and temperature. When conditions are just right, it knows it's time. As they watched, one of the chrysalises began to split. Slowly, incredibly, a butterfly emerged, its wings damp and crumpled at first. "It looks broken," Lily whispered, concerned. "Just wait," Dominic assured her. "The butterfly needs to pump fluid from its body into its wings to expand them. It's actually a very important process. If someone tried to help by opening the wings for them, the butterfly would never be strong enough to fly." I smiled from my hidden vantage point. I'd specifically asked Dominic to share that particular detail. Some lessons we need to learn for ourselves, through our own struggles. "Look!" Lily gasped as the butterfly's wings gradually expanded, revealing their iridescent blue splendor. "It's like magic." For the next hour, I watched my granddaughter transform from the subdued child I'd observed at dinner into an animated, curious explorer. She asked intelligent questions, listened attentively to Dominic's explanations, and squealed with delight when he helped her prepare a nectar-soaked sponge that attracted several butterflies to land on her small, outstretched hands. Claire, too, seemed more relaxed away from Martha's constant scrutiny. She laughed genuinely at Lily's excitement and took dozens of photos, her face soft with maternal pride. Martha, meanwhile, checked her watch repeatedly and eventually wandered off to examine the gift shop, clearly bored by the educational experience. Near the end of their visit, Dominic presented Lily with a special gift, a delicate silver bracelet with a single butterfly charm. "This is for our honorary butterfly expert," he said. "The sanctuary gives these to very special visitors who show exceptional interest and respect for our butterflies." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? For me?" "Absolutely," Dominic nodded. "In fact, the bracelet was designed by the woman who created this sanctuary. She believed that butterflies teach us the most important lesson in life." "What lesson?" Lily asked, mesmerized by the charm that caught the light just like the blue morpho's wings. "That change, even when it's difficult, can lead to something beautiful." Claire helped fasten the bracelet around Lily's wrist. "What do you say, Lily?" "Thank you so much," Lily beamed. "This is the best thing ever." As they prepared to leave, Lily turned to Dominic with sudden concern. "Will the butterflies be okay when we're gone?" "Absolutely," he assured her. "We take very good care of them here." "Can I come back tomorrow to check on the new ones?" Claire hesitated. "Sweetie, we have other activities planned." "Actually," Dominic interjected, "we offer a junior lepidopterist program. Lily could attend for a few hours each morning. She'd learn more about butterfly conservation and help feed the newly emerged butterflies." "Please, Mom," Lily pleaded. "Please." "Can I be a junior?" "What you said?" "Lepidopterist," Dominic smiled. "It means butterfly scientist." Claire looked torn. "I don't know, honey. Grandma and Grandpa might have other plans for us." My heart sank as I watched Claire once again defer to Martha's preferences rather than supporting her daughter's genuine interest. But Lily was persistent. "Please? I promise I'll do whatever Grandma wants for the rest of the day. I just really, really want to see the butterflies again." To my surprise, Claire straightened her shoulders slightly. "You know what? Yes. You can do the butterfly program in the mornings. Grandma can handle it." Lily threw her arms around Claire's waist. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." They left the sanctuary with Lily chattering excitedly about all she'd learned, the silver bracelet glinting on her wrist. I remained hidden behind the one-way glass, conflicted emotions swirling through me. I'd witnessed a glimpse of the Claire I remembered, the one who took joy in her daughter's happiness, who could stand firm when something mattered. But I'd also seen how quickly she checked herself against Martha's expectations, how her first instinct was to conform rather than to champion her child's interests. And Lily, my bright, curious granddaughter who'd been subdued into near silence at the dinner table, clearly craved authentic experiences beyond the rigid schedule of appropriate activities Martha had planned. Dominic joined me after they'd gone. That went well, I think. Better than I expected, I agreed. Thank you for giving her the bracelet. It was my pleasure. She's a wonderful child. He hesitated. If I may say so, Ms. Reynolds, she reminds me of you, the way she asks questions, really listens to the answers. She has your eyes, too. I smiled, touched by his observation. I'm hoping the Junior Lepidopterist program might give me a chance to know her better. I'll make sure she's in Elena's group. Elena understands the situation and will make sure the two of you have opportunities to interact naturally. Perfect. The rest of the day I kept to myself, reviewing quarterly projections in my suite and having a quiet dinner on my private terrace. I needed time to reflect, to plan my next move carefully. The following morning, I positioned myself in the educational center again, this time properly introduced as a visiting butterfly expert volunteering with the program. When Lily arrived with Claire for drop-off, she showed no sign of recognizing me from the yoga class, where she'd been absorbed in her tablet. Lily, this is Ms. Eleanor, Elena introduced us. She knows everything about butterflies and she'll be helping us today. Lily regarded me solemnly. Do you really know everything about butterflies? I crouched to her level, meeting her serious gaze. Not everything. Butterflies still have many secrets. That's what makes studying them so exciting. She considered this, then nodded approvingly. I like that answer better than when adults pretend to know everything. Claire checked her watch. Honey, I need to go. Grandma's waiting for our spa appointment. Okay, Lily replied, already moving toward the display of emerging chrysalises, clearly eager for Claire to leave so the real activities could begin. I'll pick her up at noon, Claire told Elena, then glanced at me with vague politeness. Nice to meet you, Eleanor. She didn't recognize me either, with my hair pulled back and glasses on, focused as she was on her busy schedule rather than really seeing the people around her. Once the parents had departed, Elena gathered the 6 children in the program. Today we're going to learn about butterfly migration. Does anyone know what migration means? A boy about Lily's age raised his hand. It's when animals move from one place to another because of the weather or to find food. Excellent, Elena smiled. Many butterfly species migrate thousands of miles every year. The most famous is probably the monarch butterfly, which travels all the way from Canada to Mexico. For the next hour, I watched Lily absorb information. Like a sponge, asking thoughtful questions and helping younger children with their butterfly crafts. When Elena announced it was time to help feed the butterflies, Lily was first in line for the nectar-soaked sponges. I approached her as she carefully held a feeding station. You're doing that perfectly, I told her. Very gentle. She beamed at me. I remembered from yesterday. You have to be super careful with their wings. That's right. Their wings are covered with tiny scales, almost like dust. If you touch them too much, they can't fly properly. A beautiful painted lady butterfly landed on Lily's sponge, its proboscis unfurling to drink the sweet liquid. Look, she whispered excitedly. It's using its straw. I laughed softly. That's exactly what it looks like, doesn't it? The scientific name is proboscis, but butterfly straw is much more fun. We worked side by side, and gradually I began asking her questions about herself, her school, her hobbies, her favorite books. Unlike at dinner with her grandparents, where she'd been nearly silent, here she chatted freely. I like to draw, she told me. Mostly animals and plants. My art teacher says I have a good eye for details. That's a wonderful skill for a scientist, I encouraged her. Observation is the foundation of all discovery. She frowned slightly. Grandma says art isn't a practical subject. She wants me to focus on math and coding. Math and coding are certainly valuable, I said carefully. But art teaches different skills: creativity, perception, patience. Some of the greatest scientists were also artists. Did you know Leonardo da Vinci drew detailed sketches of birds and bats while studying flight? Lily's eyes widened. Really? We learned about him in school. Really? Many people think his observations of nature helped him design his flying machines. She considered this, then nodded decisively. I'm going to tell Grandma that. Maybe then she'll let me take the summer art camp I want. The morning passed quickly, and soon the parents began arriving for pickup. Claire appeared precisely at noon, looking relaxed after her spa treatment. How was butterfly school? She asked Lily. Amazing. I helped feed a really rare butterfly, and Ms. Eleanor taught me about Leonardo da Vinci and how art and science go together. Claire finally looked at me properly, her brow furrowing slightly as if trying to place me. Thank you for working with the children, she said politely. Lily seems to have had a wonderful time. She's exceptionally bright, I replied. You must be very proud. Something in my voice must have triggered her memory, because she suddenly stiffened, recognition dawning in her eyes. Mom? I smiled calmly. Hello again, Claire. Lily looked between us in confusion. Mom? Is Ms. Eleanor your mom? Claire's expression cycled rapidly through shock, embarrassment, and anger. What are you doing? Are you following Lily now? I volunteer with the butterfly program, I explained, keeping my voice light for Lily's benefit. I mentioned I was a regular here. You never said you worked with butterflies, Claire hissed, pulling Lily slightly behind her as if to protect. There's a lot you don't know about me these days, Claire. Lily tugged at Claire's hand. Mom, is Ms. Eleanor really your mom? Is she my grandma? Claire opened and closed her mouth, clearly unsure how to respond. I took pity on her and crouched down to Lily's level again. Yes, I am your grandmother, Lily, but a different one than Grandma Miller. I'm your mom's mom. Lily's face lit up with excitement. I have 3 grandmas. That's so cool. Why didn't I know about you before? The innocent question hung in the air between Claire and me, loaded with years of complicated history. We don't see each other very often, I said simply. But I'm very happy to meet you properly now. Can my other grandma come to dinner with us? Lily asked Claire. Claire's face paled. Lily, we already have plans with Grandma and Grandpa Miller. But this is my grandma too, Lily insisted, her voice rising in the way children's do when confronted with adult illogic. Why can't she come? Don't you like your mom? Other parents were beginning to notice the tension, glancing curiously in our direction. Claire forced a tight smile. Of course I like my mom. It's just complicated, honey. Adult things. Actually, I interjected smoothly, I have my own dinner plans tonight, but maybe another time. Lily looked disappointed but nodded. Promise? I promise we'll see each other again, I told her, carefully avoiding specifics. I stood and addressed Claire. She really is remarkable, Claire. Reminds me of you at that age. So curious about everything. For a moment, Claire's expression softened with something like nostalgia. Then she straightened, professional mask back in place. Thank you for volunteering with the program. Lily, say goodbye. We need to meet Grandma and Grandpa for lunch. Bye, Ms. Eleanor, Grandma, Lily said, giving me an impulsive hug around the waist. Will you be here tomorrow for butterfly school? Before I could answer, Claire cut in. Actually, honey, I think we might try the marine biology program tomorrow. They have dolphin activities. Lily's face fell. But what about the chrysalises that are going to open tomorrow? Elena said we could name the new butterflies. Claire hesitated, clearly torn between her daughter's genuine enthusiasm and her desire to keep me at arm's length. I made it easier. For her. The marine program is wonderful, Lily. The dolphins are amazing and you'll learn so much. But the butterflies will still be here, I assured her. And Elena will make sure they get good names. Maybe you can visit them again before you leave the resort. Claire shot me a look that mingled relief and suspicion, then quickly led Lily away. I watched them go, my granddaughter turning to wave at me until they disappeared around a corner. Elena approached, concern on her face. Are you all right? Ms. Reynolds? Yes, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. Better than I expected, actually. Your granddaughter is lovely. She is. And there's more of her mother in her than I realized. That gives me hope. I returned to my suite, my mind racing with plans. The unexpected connection with Lily had changed something. My initial goal of simply observing had evolved. Now I wanted to build bridges, to find a way back to my daughter through the truth rather than through elaborate tests or confrontations. It was time to reveal myself, not just as Lily's mysterious other grandmother, but as Eleanor Reynolds, owner of Silver Palm Resort. The question was how to do it in a way that might heal rather than permanently fracture what remained of my relationship with Claire. I called Gabriella to my suite for an urgent meeting. It was time for Phase 3, the full revelation of my hidden advantage. You want to host a private dinner? Gabriella confirmed, tapping notes into her tablet as she sat across from me in my suite's living area. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floor. Yes, tonight. The beachfront pavilion, set for 7 people. I handed her a handwritten list. I want a specific menu, all of Claire's childhood favorites, reimagined with Anton's signature sophistication. Gabriella scanned the list, her eyebrows rising slightly. Grilled cheese with truffle oil and aged cheddar, upgraded mac and cheese with lobster, gourmet chicken tenders with house-made dipping sauces. This is quite different from our usual pavilion menu. I know, I said with a small smile. And for dessert, I want a butterfly-themed cake. Lily is fascinated with them right now. And the guests? The Miller party, plus myself. I took a deep breath. It's time they know who I am, Gabriella. All of it. Her eyes widened. Are you certain? After what you've observed so far. I am. This isn't about revenge or shocking them, though I won't deny there might be some satisfaction in that. But watching Claire with Lily today reminded me of something important. Behind all the pretension and social climbing, there's still my daughter in there somewhere. I raised her better than this. Gabriella nodded thoughtfully. I understand. How would you like the invitations presented? Formally, with the resort's embossed stationery. Address it to the entire party as a special dinner hosted by the owner. Don't mention me by name. And the timing? I checked my watch. Deliver it at 4 p.m. Dinner at 7 p.m. That gives them enough time to get ready, but not enough to create elaborate excuses. Consider it done, Gabriella said, standing. Anything else? I hesitated. Yes. Please arrange for the resort photographer to be positioned discreetly. If this goes sideways, I want a record of exactly what happens. Gabriella's expression softened with concern. Ms. Reynolds, are you expecting trouble? I'm expecting honesty, I replied, for better or worse. After she left, I spent a long time selecting what to wear. This wasn't simply another dinner, it was a declaration. Eventually, I chose a silk maxi dress in deep teal that brought out the green in my eyes, paired with simple but expensive jewelry. Professional, elegant, confident. The image of a successful businesswoman, not a struggling former housekeeper. At 6:45 p.m., I arrived at the beachfront pavilion to inspect the arrangements. The open-air structure sat on a secluded stretch of beach, connected to the main property by a winding torchlit path. Inside, staff had transformed the space with hundreds of candles and arrangements of white orchids and bird-of-paradise flowers. The round table was set with our finest linens and silver, crystal glasses catching the sunset light. Behind a discreet screen, servers prepared to attend to every need. "Perfect," I told the pavilion manager. "And the photographer?" He gestured subtly toward a decorative panel where small apertures had been cut into the design. "Position there, as requested. The images will be transmitted directly to your private server." I took my place at the table, back to the entrance, and waited. At precisely 7:01 p.m., I heard voices approaching along the path. "This must be some kind of mistake," Martha was saying. "Why would the owner invite us specifically?" "Perhaps they do this for all guests," Richard suggested. "A marketing gimmick." "The note said it was a private dinner for our party only," Claire replied. "Maybe it's because of the issue with Paige's room? Some kind of apology?" "Well, they certainly should apologize for that debacle," Martha sniffed. "Though I must say, the rest of the stay has been acceptable. Not quite St. Bart's standard, but adequate." They entered the pavilion, falling silent as they took in the elegant setting. The manager greeted them warmly. "Welcome to our beachfront pavilion. Your host is already seated." I remained facing the ocean, listening as they approached the table. When I sensed they were just behind me, I slowly turned in my chair. "Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you could join me." The tableau of shock before me was almost cinematic. Martha froze mid-step, her mouth forming a perfect O. Richard's eyebrows shot toward his hairline. Greg looked like he might drop the glass of welcome champagne he'd just accepted from a server. Claire went deathly pale, her hand instinctively reaching for Lily's shoulder as if to steady herself. Only Lily seemed unfazed. "Ms. Eleanor Grandma!" she exclaimed happily. "You're having dinner with us after all." "Yes, sweetheart," I smiled at her. "I thought it would be nice for all of us to have dinner together. Please, everyone, take your seats." For a moment, no one moved. Then Martha found her voice. "What is the meaning of this? We were told we'd be dining with the resort owner." "You are," I replied calmly. "Please, sit down. The first course will be served momentarily." Claire stared at me in disbelief. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "I'm Eleanor Reynolds, majority owner of Silver Palm Resort. This property, and 11 others in my hospitality group." I gestured to the chairs. "The gazpacho will get warm if we don't begin soon." Mechanically, they took their seats, all except Martha, who remained standing, her face flushing with either anger or embarrassment. Perhaps both. "This is absurd," she declared. "Some kind of elaborate prank." The pavilion manager stepped forward smoothly. "Mrs. Miller, I assure you, Ms. Reynolds is indeed the owner of Silver Palm Resort. We're honored to have her in residence this week." Martha finally sank into her chair, eyeing me with open suspicion. Servers immediately appeared with the first course, chilled cucumber gazpacho with king crab, one of Anton's specialties. "Mom?" Claire whispered, leaning toward me. "What's going on? How is this possible?" "We'll get to that," I said. "But first, let's enjoy dinner, shall we? I've asked Chef Anton to prepare some special dishes tonight." Richard cleared his throat, businessman's instincts seemingly kicking in. "Eleanor, this is quite a surprise. I had no idea you were involved in the hospitality industry." "Few people do," I replied. "I prefer to maintain a low profile." "Low profile," Martha repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. "Or elaborate deception?" I met her gaze directly. "I've never lied about who I am, Martha. People simply see what they expect to see." Claire looked down at her soup, then back at me, confusion and hurt mingling in her expression. "You let me think. All this time, you let me believe you. We're still struggling. Why? Perhaps for the same reason you didn't want me on this vacation, I replied gently. Some truths are difficult to share. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table, broken only by Lily's innocent commentary on the deliciousness of the soup. The servers cleared the first course and brought out the second, the reimagined grilled cheese with a small arugula salad. Greg, who had remained silent until now, suddenly snapped his fingers. Wait, Reynolds Hospitality Group. I read about them in Forbes last year. Boutique luxury properties, exceptional customer satisfaction ratings, privately held. He stared at me with new interest. That's you? That's me, I confirmed. But how? Claire pressed, her voice tight with emotion. How did this happen? When did this happen? I took a deliberate bite of my grilled cheese, savoring the creamy, earthy flavor of the truffles with the sharp tang of aged cheddar. Do you remember Beth Watson? I used to clean her house every Tuesday. Claire nodded slowly. The retired executive with the big house on Lakeshore Drive. Beth suggested I invest in a tech startup about 9 years ago. I put in the insurance money from my parents, $7,000, everything I had saved. When the company was acquired 3 years later, that investment grew substantially. How substantially? Richard asked, financial curiosity evidently overcoming his shock. Initially, about $3 million, I said calmly, watching their eyes widen. I reinvested wisely, eventually purchasing my first resort property 4 years ago. Silver Palm was my second acquisition. Martha put down her fork with a clatter. This is preposterous. If you had that kind of money, why continue to live like you did? Why clean houses and work at that clinic? I didn't need to maintain those jobs for income, but I did need health insurance, and I valued the structure they provided, I explained. After spending most of my life working constantly, I found too much leisure time. Uncomfortable. Eventually, I phased out those positions as the resorts demanded more attention. Claire was staring at her plate, her food untouched. So when you told me you'd found a better opportunity and moved to the new condo, I was simplifying a more complicated truth, I said. I thought about telling you everything then. But you seemed so disinterested in my life. Our conversations were so brief, always redirected to your concerns or Martha's social calendar. That's unfair, Claire protested, though weakly. Is it? I raised an eyebrow. When was the last time you asked me a meaningful question about my life, Claire? About what brings me joy or challenges me? When did you last invite me to your home without Martha orchestrating the entire visit? Greg shifted uncomfortably. In his seat. Martha's lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. This is hardly appropriate dinner conversation, she said sharply. On the contrary, I replied. It's long overdue. The servers removed our plates and brought the next course. The lobster mac and cheese presented elegantly in individual copper pots. Lily clapped her hands in delight. Fancy mac and cheese! This is the best dinner ever! Her innocent enthusiasm momentarily lightened the tension. Claire gave her daughter a strained smile, then turned back to me. So when I told you we were coming to Silver Palm, you knew. You knew, and you didn't say anything. And when you told me I couldn't join you because there wasn't enough room, I knew that was a lie, I countered gently. This resort has plenty of room, Claire. I designed the Hummingbird Suite personally, with 3 spacious bedrooms. I even ensured the 3rd bedroom had a queen bed rather than twins specifically to accommodate adult guests. Claire had the grace to look embarrassed. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. By excluding me from a family vacation? How thoughtful. Richard cleared his throat again. In Claire's defense, Eleanor, family dynamics can be complicated. Sometimes separate vacations are healthier for everyone. Interesting perspective, Richard. Did you share that wisdom when you insisted your own parents join you for 2 weeks in Aspen last winter? I took a sip of my wine. Or does that philosophy only apply to relatives you deem unsuitable? His cheeks reddened slightly. That's not fair. Our situation is different. Yes, it is, I agreed. Your parents didn't work 3 jobs to put you through college or sacrifice their own needs to ensure you had every opportunity. But mine did that for me, and I did the same for Claire. Martha put down her fork again. Now wait just a minute. No one is questioning your dedication as a mother, but surely you can understand why Claire might want to establish some independence. Independence? I laughed softly. Is that what we're calling it when a 40-year-old woman allows her mother-in-law to dictate her vacation plans, her parenting decisions, and apparently even her relationships with other family members? Claire flinched as if I'd slapped her. Mom, stop. I'm sorry, sweetheart, but it's time for honesty. I turned to face her directly. I've watched you this week, deferring to Martha on everything from restaurant choices to Lily's activities. I've heard you dismiss my entire life as embarrassing. I saw how quickly you tried to redirect Lily from something she was genuinely passionate about because it might not meet Martha's approval. Lily looked up from her mac and cheese, suddenly attentive. Is that why you said I couldn't do butterfly school tomorrow? Because Grandma Martha wouldn't like it? The directness of a child, so disarming, so impossible to deflect. Claire's face crumpled slightly. No, honey, it's not that. It's just complicated. That's what grown-ups say when they don't want to tell the truth, Lily observed matter-of-factly. My teacher says that's not honest communication. Out of the mouths of babes. I bit back a smile as Claire struggled to respond. Martha intervened. Lily, adults sometimes make decisions that children don't understand because we have more experience. Your mother is trying to provide you with diverse experiences, not just butterflies every day. But I love the butterflies, Lily insisted. And Ms. Eleanor Grandma knows everything about them. Did you know she made the whole butterfly garden? That's so cool. All eyes turned to me. I smiled at my granddaughter. I helped design it, yes. I wanted children visiting our resort to have meaningful experiences with nature. Can I still go tomorrow? Lily pleaded, looking between her mother and me. Please. Claire hesitated, then nodded. Yes, if that's what you really want. Yes. Lily punched the air triumphantly, then looked at me. Will you be there again? I can be, I said, glancing at Claire for permission. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded again. It was a small victory, but significant. The first decision I'd seen her make without seeking Martha's approval first. The servers cleared our plates and brought the next course. The gourmet chicken tenders for Lily, and perfectly seared sea bass for the adults. The conversation lulled as we ate, everyone seemingly processing the revelations of the evening thus far. Finally, Greg broke the silence. So, Eleanor, the Reynolds Hospitality Group, are you considering expansion? Taking on investors? I have some contacts who might be interested. The naked opportunism almost made me laugh. Not 24 hours ago, he'd been joking about my unsophisticated taste, and now he was angling for business connections. We're doing quite well as a private company, I replied coolly. I prefer to maintain complete control over our properties and corporate direction. Smart, Richard nodded, apparently deciding to pivot to collegial respect. Too many good companies are ruined by outside interference. But if you ever reconsider, I'd be happy to introduce you to some discreet private equity firms. I'll keep that in mind, I said, with no intention of doing so. Claire had barely touched her sea bass, pushing it around her plate distractedly. I still don't understand, she said quietly. 9 years, Mom. You've been wealthy for 9 years and never said a word. Not when we bought our house, not when Lily was born, not even when you retired. Why keep it secret from me? I put down my fork, considering my words carefully. At first it was caution. I grew up with so little and I've spent most of my life living paycheck to paycheck. I needed time to believe the money was real, that it wouldn't disappear overnight. I wanted to establish myself in this new world before sharing it. And after that? Claire pressed. After that? I started to see how you viewed me. The admission hurt, but it was necessary. How you'd become embarrassed by your background, by the work I'd done to support us. When you suggested I not mention the diner or housekeeping to Martha and Richard, when you started excluding me from family events or seating me at the distant relatives' table at your wedding, I realized something had changed between us. Claire looked stricken. I wasn't. You were, I said gently. I'm not saying this to hurt you, Claire. But the truth is, you began treating me as someone to manage rather than someone to cherish. And I wondered if telling you about the money would really change anything meaningful between us. Would you suddenly value my opinion or seek my company because I could now afford designer clothes? What would that say about our relationship? A tear slid down Claire's cheek. So this was some kind of test? To see if I was shallow enough? To only care about you if you were rich? Not a test, I corrected. An observation. And when you explicitly excluded me from this vacation, a vacation at my own resort, it seemed like confirmation of what I'd feared. Martha cleared her throat loudly. This is all very dramatic, Eleanor, but families grow apart. It's natural for Claire to gravitate toward her husband's family, especially given the social considerations. Social considerations? I repeated, my voice hardening. Please, Martha, elaborate on these social considerations that made it necessary for Claire to distance herself from her own mother. Martha at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. I simply meant that as Claire and Greg established themselves in certain circles, they needed to present a unified front. Family complications can be distracting. I'm not a family complication, I said evenly. I'm Claire's mother, the woman who held her through chickenpox and heartbreaks, who worked 18-hour days to afford her dance lessons and SAT prep courses, who cheered at every school play and graduation. That history doesn't disappear because it's inconvenient for your country club membership. Richard shifted in his seat. Now, Eleanor, there's no need to be emotional about this. Martha meant no offense. I'm not being emotional, Richard. I'm being truthful. And the truth is, you and Martha have systematically encouraged Claire to distance herself from me and the values I raised her with. You've treated me with condescension from the moment we met, and you've taught Claire to do the same. Claire stared at her plate. That's not fair, Mom. I make my own decisions. Do you? Let's review this vacation. Who decided on Silver Palm? Who created the itinerary? Who determined that there wasn't room for me to join you? Claire didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was confirmation enough. The servers began clearing the dinner plates. Lily, who had been quietly observing the adult conversation with wide eyes, suddenly piped up. I think everybody's being mean. Families are supposed to love each other. The simple statement hung in the air, a child's wisdom cutting through the pretense and justification. You're absolutely right, Lily, I said softly. Families are supposed to love each other. The dessert arrived, a magnificent cake decorated to look like a garden scene with delicate sugar butterflies perched on fondant flowers. Lily gasped in delight. Look, Mom, butterflies! It's the most beautiful cake ever. Claire managed a watery smile. It's beautiful, honey. As the servers cut and distributed slices, I addressed the table once more. I didn't arrange this dinner to embarrass anyone or to seek revenge for past slights. I organized it because I believe in second chances. Despite everything, Claire, you're still my daughter and I love you. Lily is my granddaughter, and I've missed too much of her life already. I want us to try again, to build a relationship based on genuine respect and affection, not social expectations or outdated assumptions. Martha opened her mouth as if to object, but Richard placed a restraining hand on her arm. Claire looked at me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything right now, I told her. Just think about what kind of relationship you want us to have going forward, and what kind of example you want to set for Lily about family, loyalty, and authenticity. Greg, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. For what it's worth, Eleanor, I think we've all misjudged the situation. And you. He glanced at Claire. Maybe we should reconsider some things. It wasn't much, but it was something, an acknowledgement at least, that changes were needed. As we finished dessert, I signaled to the servers to bring coffee and after-dinner drinks. The conversation shifted to safer topics: Lily's school, a recent exhibit at the City Art Museum, the perfect weather we'd been enjoying. The tension remained, but it had transformed from hostile confrontation to something more contemplative. When the evening finally drew to a close, I walked with them along the torch-lit path back toward the main resort. Lily slipped her small hand into mine, chattering about the butterflies she hoped to see the next day. Martha and Richard walked. Ahead, their postures stiff, while Greg and Claire followed several paces behind us. At the lobby, I crouched down to Lily's level. I'll see you tomorrow at butterfly school, okay? She threw her arms around my neck in an impulsive hug. Promise? I promise. I stood and addressed the adults. Thank you for joining me tonight. If there's anything you need during the remainder of your stay, please don't hesitate to ask. Martha nodded stiffly. Thank you for dinner. Richard extended his hand, businessman to the end. A pleasure to see this side of you, Eleanor. Quite illuminating. They moved toward the elevators, but Claire lingered, motioning for Greg to go ahead without her. When we were alone, she finally met my eyes directly. 9 years, Mom. 9 years of letting me think you were one person while you were becoming someone else entirely. I never changed who I was, Claire, I corrected gently. I just changed my circumstances. The person you've been embarrassed by, the hardworking woman who valued honesty and kindness over status, that's still me. The only difference is now I own the hotel instead of cleaning it. She shook her head, tears threatening again. I don't know if I can process all of this right now. Take your time. We have the rest of the vacation, and hopefully, many years beyond that. She hesitated, then asked the question that clearly troubled her most. Have you been watching us this whole time? Laughing at us behind our backs? Not laughing, Claire. Observing. Trying to understand what happened to the daughter I raised, the one who used to value character over wealth, who judged people by their kindness rather than their connections. She flinched. That's not fair. Perhaps not, but it's honest. And maybe honesty is what we both need right now. I touched her arm gently. Get some rest. We can talk more tomorrow. She nodded and turned toward the elevators. I watched her go, feeling both drained and strangely hopeful. The evening had unfolded differently than I'd imagined. Less dramatic confrontation, more nuanced reckoning. The truth was out now, for better or worse. The question was what Claire would do with it. Back in my suite, I found an envelope that had been slipped under my door. Inside was a child's drawing, a butterfly garden with 2 stick figures holding hands. One tall with silver hair, one small with a ponytail. Across the bottom, in careful printing, to my other grandma, from Lily. I placed the drawing on my nightstand, a small beacon of hope in the complicated landscape of family relationships. Perhaps there was still a chance to rebuild what had been broken, not by wealth or its absence, but by pride, insecurity, and misplaced values. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations. But for tonight, I had accomplished what I set out to do. I had revealed my hidden advantage, confronted the painful truths in our relationship, and perhaps opened a door to reconciliation. Not through revenge or humiliation, but through the simple power of honesty. Whether Claire would walk through that door remained to be seen. Morning arrived with the gentle chorus of island birds and the distant rhythm of waves breaking on the Chim shore. I rose early, drawn to my private terrace by the spectacular canvas of pinks and oranges spreading across the horizon. A fresh pot of coffee waited on the small table, Gabriella's thoughtful touch. As I sipped the rich, aromatic brew, I reflected on the previous evening's revelations and wondered what the day would bring. Would Claire avoid me entirely? Would Martha attempt damage control, perhaps even convincing the family to cut their vacation short? Or might there be an opening, a small crack in the carefully constructed facade that could lead to genuine reconciliation? My phone chimed with a message from Elena at the Butterfly Sanctuary. Lily confirmed for this morning's program. Claire will be dropping her off personally. A positive sign, though not necessarily a decisive one. It might simply be that Lily had insisted, and Claire was choosing the path of least resistance with her daughter while contemplating her next move regarding me. I dressed in comfortable linen pants and a light blouse, suitable for working with the children at the sanctuary. My hair, which I'd worn up for last night's dinner, I left loose around my shoulders, the way I'd worn it during Claire's childhood, before practicality and work necessitated more severe styles. The Butterfly Sanctuary was already humming with activity when I arrived. Elena directed the staff in preparing materials for the children's program, while the groundskeeper misted the tropical plants that created the perfect microclimate for our butterfly species. "Good morning, Ms. Reynolds," Elena greeted me warmly. "We have 6 children registered today, including your granddaughter." "Thank you for letting me know," I replied, helping to arrange small magnifying glasses and observation journals at the children's workstations. "And please, just Eleanor today." At precisely 9 o'clock, the first families began arriving. I busied myself checking on the chrysalis display, deliberately giving parents space to drop off their children without feeling my attention. When Claire arrived with Lily, I sensed her presence before I saw her, the slight hesitation in her step, the whispered instruction to Lily that carried in the greenhouse acoustics. "Remember, be polite to everyone, listen to your teachers, and have fun." "I will. Do you think Grandma Eleanor will be here again?" A pause. Yes, I think she will be." "Good, because I want to show her my butterfly drawing. Do you think she liked it? I put it under her door like a secret mission." "I'm sure she loved it, sweetheart." I turned then, smiling at them, both. "Good morning, Lily, Claire." Lily bounded toward me, her energy seemingly limitless. "Grandma Eleanor, did you get my picture? I drew it special after dinner." I crouched to her level, meeting her enthusiastic gaze. "I did, and it's beautiful. I put it right beside my bed so it's the first thing I see when I wake up." Her face lit up with pride. "Really? I worked super hard on the butterflies. I tried to make them like the blue ones we saw yesterday." "You captured them perfectly," I assured her, then straightened to address Claire. "Good morning. I'm glad Lily could join us again today." Claire looked tired, shadows beneath her eyes suggesting a restless night. She wore no makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, a striking contrast to the polished image she'd maintained since their arrival. "She insisted," Claire said, then immediately grimaced at how that sounded. I mean, she was very excited about coming back. "We have a special activity planned today," I told Lily. "We're going to learn about butterfly life cycles and make our own chrysalis models." "Cool!" Lily bounced on her toes. "Can I start now?" "Elena will get everyone set up." I nodded toward where the other children were gathering. "Why don't you join them and I'll be right there?" As Lily skipped away, Claire and I were left in an awkward silence. She fidgeted with the strap of her crossbody bag, her gaze darting everywhere but my face. Claire, I began gently, we don't have to have a deep conversation right now. There's time. She finally met my eyes. I didn't sleep much last night. Neither did I. Another pause, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Then Claire surprised me. Would you have lunch with me today? Just us, away from everyone else. I tried to conceal my surprise. I'd like that very much. There's a cafe in town. Maria's, I think it's called. The concierge recommended it yesterday. Noon? I know it well, I replied. The owner is a friend. Noon is perfect. Claire nodded, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Okay, good. I'll see you then. She turned to leave, then paused. Mom? Thank you for not forcing this conversation in front of Lily. Of course, I said softly. Some things are best kept between adults. She left, and I joined the children's program already in progress. For the next 2 hours, I immersed myself in the joy of scientific discovery through young eyes. Lily was particularly engaged, asking insightful questions and helping younger children with their chrysalis models. I watched her carefully form the delicate shape with air-dry clay, her small tongue poking out between her teeth in concentration, exactly as Claire used to do when focused on a task. Look, Grandma Eleanor, she called me over proudly. I made mine green with gold spots just like the real ones. It's beautiful, I told her truthfully. You have a wonderful eye for detail. She beamed at the praise. Mom says I get that from my dad. But he says I get it from her. You probably got the best qualities from both of them, I said diplomatically. That's how families work. What did I get from you? She asked innocently. The question caught me off guard. Well, we're just getting to know each other, so it's hard to say. But your mom got her determination from me. Once she sets her mind to something, she doesn't give up easily. Perhaps you have that too. Lily considered this seriously. I think I do. My teacher says I'm persistent, which means I keep trying, even when things are hard. That's exactly right. And that's a wonderful quality to have. As the program wound down and parents began arriving for pickup, I felt a flutter of anticipation about my upcoming lunch with Claire. I had no idea what to expect. Would it be a formal severing of ties? A negotiation about Lily's access to me? Or perhaps, though I hardly dared hope, a genuine attempt to rebuild our relationship. I handed the program over to Elena and walked to my suite to freshen up before heading into town. Maria's cafe sat on a cobblestone street in the island's small but charming main village, a 15-minute drive from the resort. The open-air eatery featured colorful mosaic tables under a canopy of bougainvillea vines, with ceiling fans lazily circulating the sea breeze. The food was authentic island cuisine, simple, fresh, and bursting with flavor. I arrived a few minutes early and was immediately greeted with a warm hug from Maria herself, a formidable woman in her 60s who had become a close friend during my time on the island. Eleanor, twice in 1 week. What a treat, she exclaimed, leading me to my favorite corner table. The usual? Actually, I'm meeting my daughter for lunch, I said, unable to keep a note of nervous anticipation from my voice. Maria's eyes widened slightly. She knew some of my history with Claire from our many conversations over strong coffee and fresh passion fruit juice. Your daughter? The one who... She trailed off diplomatically. Yes, that daughter. My only daughter. Maria squeezed my hand sympathetically. I'll take special care of you both. The best table, the best food. Thank you, but please don't make a fuss. This is delicate. She nodded understandingly and moved away to greet other customers, leaving me to my thoughts. At precisely noon, Claire appeared in the cafe entrance, scanning the tables until she spotted me. She wore a simple sundress and flat sandals, notably different from the designer resort wear she'd favored earlier in the week. I stood to greet her, unsure whether to offer a hug or a more distant welcome. She resolved the question by leaning in for a quick, slightly awkward embrace before taking her seat. "This place is charming," she commented, looking around at the vibrant decor and eclectic mix of locals and tourists. "I can't believe I've never been to the village before. Martha scheduled all our meals at the resort. Maria's has the best Johnny cakes on the island," I told her, "and her daughter makes incredible hot sauce. Not too spicy, just flavorful." As if summoned by her name, Maria appeared with a pitcher of iced hibiscus tea and 2 glasses. "Welcome to my cafe, Eleanor's daughter. I'm Maria. You like spicy, not spicy? Fish? No fish? Vegetarian?" Claire looked momentarily overwhelmed by the enthusiastic greeting. I eat everything, and medium spicy is fine." "Good. I bring you something special." Maria winked at me and disappeared into the kitchen. "She seems energetic," Claire observed, pouring herself some tea. "Maria is a force of nature," I agreed. "She was one of the first people I met when I came to evaluate Silver Palm for purchase. She told me exactly what was wrong with the resort and how to fix it." "And you listened to her?" "Of course. Local wisdom is invaluable in this business. Maria knows everyone on the island and understands what travelers want before they know it themselves." Claire took a sip of her tea, then set the glass down carefully. "So, you really own the resort?" "Yes, and 10 others, with an 11th under construction in Belize." "I looked up Reynolds' hospitality group this morning," she admitted. "The business press calls you the invisible hotel magnate because you never give interviews or appear at industry events." I smiled. "I prefer to evaluate my properties incognito. It gives me a more authentic sense of the guest experience." "Like how you watched us at dinner the other night." It wasn't quite an accusation, but the edge in her voice was unmistakable. "Yes," I acknowledged, though that wasn't about business evaluation. Claire fidgeted with her napkin. "When I saw your text saying you understood you couldn't join us, I thought you were hurt but accepting it. I never imagined you were already here, watching us, judging us." "Not judging," I corrected gently. "Observing. There's a difference." "Is there? Because it feels like you set up an elaborate test that we were destined to fail." Maria returned with a platter of appetizers, conch fritters, plantain chips, with mango salsa, and small Johnny cakes spread with herb butter. "Start with these. Main dishes coming soon." After she left, I considered Claire's accusation. It wasn't a test, not deliberately. When I realized you'd be vacationing at my resort, my first instinct was simply to tell you the truth. But then I received your text officially uninviting me, and I reacted. I wanted to understand why my own daughter was embarrassed by me. Claire winced. "I wasn't embarrassed by you." "Weren't you? I heard the jokes about Olive Garden." "Claire. The comments about my supposed lack of sophistication? The way you and Greg laughed with Martha about how I might embarrass you by asking staff about discount days." She had the grace to look ashamed. I shouldn't have said those things." "No, you shouldn't have. But more importantly, you shouldn't have thought them. I raised you to judge people by their character, not their bank accounts. Or social status." Claire picked up a conch fritter but didn't eat it, turning it absently in her fingers. "Things changed when I married Greg. His family, their world. It was so different from how I grew up. I felt like I was constantly catching up, learning rules no one had taught me." "So you decided the problem was me? Your background? The values I instilled in you?" She set the fritter down, her eyes suddenly bright with unshed tears. "No, maybe. I don't know. I wanted to belong in their world. To give Lily opportunities I never had." "Opportunities like what exactly? Private schools? European vacations? Designer clothes? Because I remember a little girl who was thrilled by trips to the public library and picnics in the park. Who wore secondhand clothes without complaint and never made other children feel bad for having less? A tear slipped down Claire's cheek. That was different. We were struggling then. I didn't know any better. Or perhaps you knew something better, that happiness doesn't come from status or possessions, that genuine connections matter more than social climbing. Claire dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple at all, I acknowledged. Navigating different social worlds is complicated, but completely rejecting your roots, and by extension, that was a choice, Claire, a hurtful one. Maria appeared with our main courses, fresh grilled fish for me and coconut curry shrimp for Claire, both served with colorful arrays of local vegetables and rice. She took one look at Claire's tear-streaked face and shot me a questioning glance. I gave a small nod to indicate everything was under control, and she tactfully withdrew. We ate in silence for a few minutes, the excellent food providing a welcome respite from the emotional conversation. Finally, Claire spoke again, her voice steadier. When did you first realize you were wealthy? That your life had changed? I considered the question. There wasn't one dramatic moment. The investment grew gradually over several years. I continued working my regular jobs partly out of habit, partly because I didn't entirely trust that the money would last. Growing up poor leaves scars, a persistent fear that everything could vanish overnight. Claire nodded slightly. I remember that feeling. Always counting pennies, worrying if the electric bill would clear. Exactly. So even as my bank balance grew, my mindset remained cautious. I made small changes, buying higher quality shoes that wouldn't hurt my feet, replacing the ancient car that kept breaking down. But I didn't suddenly start buying designer clothes or booking luxury vacations. Until Silver Palm. Actually, my first property was a struggling inn in Vermont. I renovated it, improved operations, and turned it into a successful boutique hotel. Silver Palm came later, after I'd gained confidence in my business instincts. Claire took a bite of her shrimp, her expression thoughtful. All those years, I was pitying you, thinking you were barely getting by. You were building an empire. Not an empire, I corrected. A business I'm proud of. But yes, while you were distancing yourself from me, believing I couldn't possibly understand your new lifestyle, I was creating something meaningful. Why didn't you tell me? When I started pulling away, when Martha began taking over everything. Why keep it secret? I set down my fork, choosing my words carefully. Initially, it was caution. Then it became a kind of test, though not the one you're thinking of. I wanted to know if you still valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. If our relationship could survive without material advantage. And it didn't, Claire said softly. I failed the test. That's too simple, I replied. Relationships don't exist in pass-fail terms. We both made mistakes. I should have been more open with you. You should have been more loyal to your own values. Martha made it so easy to forget those values, Claire admitted. She had an opinion about everything. How to decorate our house, which preschool was best for Lily, which social connections mattered. At first, I resisted, but Greg was eager to please his parents, and eventually it seemed easier to just go along. And where did that leave you, Claire? Are you happy with the life you've created? She stared at her plate, pushing rice around with her fork. I don't know anymore. Before last night, I would have said yes. But seeing you again, hearing the things Martha says when she thinks you're not around, it's made me question everything. Including me, I pointed out. You were quick to believe I was somehow deceiving you, rather than simply living my life privately. Because it was easier than admitting I'd been wrong, she whispered. If you were manipulating the situation, then I could keep believing I'd Made the right choices. That cutting you out was justified. The raw honesty of her admission caught me by surprise. I reached across the table and took her hand gently. I've missed you, Claire. Not just since you excluded me from this vacation, but for years. I've missed the daughter who used to tell me everything, who valued kindness over status, who saw the best in people regardless of their circumstances. Her fingers tightened around mine. I've missed you too. The real you, not the version of you I've been selling myself to justify my behavior. She took a shaky breath. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything. The simple apology, spoken without qualification or deflection, melted something frozen inside me. Not everything. There was still much to discuss, many wounds to heal, but enough to feel hope blooming where resentment had taken root. I'm sorry too, I told her, for not trusting you with the truth earlier. Maria appeared to clear our plates, tactfully ignoring our joined hands and tear-stained faces. Dessert? I have coconut flan today. Very good. Claire smiled weakly. That sounds perfect, thank you. When Maria left, Claire squared her shoulders slightly. There's something else I need to tell you. We're cutting our vacation short. We're leaving tomorrow. My heart sank. Because of last night? Partly, she admitted. Martha is not handling the revelations well. She spent most of the night insisting we'd been manipulated and embarrassed intentionally. She hesitated. But that's not the only reason. Greg and I had a long talk. After you and I texted about lunch, we've decided to take Lily to my old hometown for a few days, just the three of us. I want to show her where I grew up, the library where you used to take me for story hour, the park where we had those picnics. Surprised, I searched her face. Really? She nodded. Lily knows almost nothing about my childhood. About your sacrifices. About who we were before the Millers. That needs to change. And Greg agrees with this plan? Surprisingly, yes. He said last night made him realize how much influence his parents have had over our lives. He's not cutting them off. That would be extreme. But he thinks we need some perspective. And Martha? Claire grimaced. She's furious, naturally. Called me ungrateful, accused me of throwing away all the opportunities they've provided. Richard is more philosophical about it, says every couple needs to establish boundaries. Maria returned with 2 perfect coconut flans, caramel sauce cascading down their sides. Enjoy, ladies. On the house for Eleanor and her beautiful daughter. As we savored the silky dessert, I considered the unexpected turn our conversation had taken. What happens after your hometown visit? Claire met my gaze directly. I'd like us to start over, Mom. Not pretend the past didn't happen, but a rebuild. I want Lily to know her other grandmother, the real you, not the version I've been presenting. I'd like that very much, I said softly. But what about Martha? She won't simply accept being sidelined. Probably not, Claire agreed. But that's for me and Greg to handle. We've been letting her control too much for too long. As if summoned by our discussion, my phone buzzed with a text from Gabriella. Martha Miller requesting urgent meeting. With resort owner. Says it's about family situation. How would you like me to respond? I showed Claire the message. She groaned. She must have seen us leave together. I told her I was going shopping in the village. Do you want me to meet with her? Claire considered this, then nodded firmly. Yes. This needs to end, one way or another. But I'm coming with you. I texted Gabriella back. Schedule meeting. For 3 p.m. in my office. We finished our dessert, and I settled the bill despite Maria's protests. As we walked back to where the resort shuttle waited, Claire linked her arm through mine, a small gesture that felt enormously significant. I need to pick up Lily from the kids' program and explain that we're leaving tomorrow, she said. Will you come with me? I think she'll be disappointed about missing the butterflies. Of course. And perhaps we can arrange a special farewell. Visit to the sanctuary before you go. The drive back to the resort was companionable, the silence between us no longer strained but contemplative. I directed the driver to drop us at the children's center, where Lily was participating in a seashell craft activity. Her face lit up when she saw us both. "Mom! Grandma Eleanor! Look what I made!" She held up a picture frame decorated with tiny shells and sea glass. "It's for my butterfly picture when it gets developed." "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Claire said, crouching beside her. "Listen, we need to talk about something important. We're going to be leaving the resort tomorrow." Lily's face fell. "But what about the butterflies? Elena said more chrysalises are going to open." "I know, and I'm sorry. But we're going somewhere special, the town where I grew up, where Grandma Eleanor and I used to live. I want to show you all my favorite places." Lily looked uncertain. "Will there be butterflies there too?" I joined them, sitting on a nearby child-sized chair. "Not in a sanctuary like ours, but there are wild butterflies everywhere if you know where to look. And I have an idea. What if we arrange a special farewell visit to the sanctuary tonight? Just the three of us, after it's closed to other guests?" Lily bounced excitedly. "Really? At night? Do butterflies sleep?" "They rest with their wings closed," I explained. "But there's something magical about the sanctuary at sunset. The flowers release their strongest fragrance, and sometimes the nocturnal moths begin to emerge." "Can we, Mom? Please!" Claire smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm. "Of course we can. And I think it's time Grandma Eleanor showed us her special suite too. I hear it has room for butterfly tea parties." My heart swelled at this olive branch, Claire, explicitly including me in their plans, acknowledging my place in their lives. As Lily gathered her things, chattering about which butterflies she hoped to see, Claire leaned close to me. "I meant what I said at lunch. I want to start over. And I want to be the daughter you raised me to be, not the person I've let myself become." Before I could respond, the Children's Center director approached with a tense smile. "Ms. Miller, Mrs. Miller asked me to inform you that she's expecting you and Lily to join them for tea at the Orchid Lounge immediately." Claire straightened, a familiar acquiescent expression beginning to form before she caught herself. "Please tell Mrs. Miller that we have other plans this afternoon. We'll see her at dinner." The director looked startled by this uncharacteristic refusal but nodded and moved away to deliver the message. I raised an eyebrow, impressed. "That's new." Claire's smile was small but determined. "Baby steps." We dropped Lily off with Greg, who was surprisingly supportive of our plans for the evening and the impending meeting with Martha. "It's time to clear the air," he said, with more backbone than I'd previously given him credit for. "Mom's gone too far this time." At precisely 3 p.m., Claire and I entered my resort office, a space I rarely used, preferring to work from my suite. The room reflected my aesthetic sensibilities: warm woods, local artwork, and large windows overlooking the ocean. Martha and Richard were already seated in the visitor chairs, Martha perched on the edge of her seat like a bird ready to take flight at the slightest provocation. "Finally," she said as we entered. "This situation has become completely untenable, and I demand—" "Martha," Richard cautioned, placing a restraining hand on her arm. "Let's discuss this civilly." I took my seat behind the desk, while Claire positioned herself beside me rather than joining her in-laws, a symbolic choice that wasn't lost on anyone in the room. "What can I help you with, Martha?" I asked calmly. "You can explain why you've orchestrated this entire charade," she replied, her voice tight with suppressed anger. "Pretending to be some struggling retiree when all along you were this." She waved her hand dismissively at my surroundings. "I never pretended anything," I said. "I simply chose not to broadcast my financial situation. A right everyone enjoys, I believe." "And then you ambushed us at dinner, humiliated us in front of the staff." "Mom," Claire interrupted firmly, "that's enough. Mom didn't humiliate anyone. She revealed a truth we should have known years ago if we'd bothered to take any interest in her life. Martha looked at Claire as if she'd grown a second head. Whose side are you on? This isn't about sides, Claire replied. It's about family. My family. Including my mother, whom I've treated shamefully for years while you encouraged it every step of the way. Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. Now, Claire, that's not entirely fair. We've always wanted what's best for you and Greg. What's best for us, or what looks best to your country club friends? Claire challenged. Because I'm starting to think those aren't the same thing. Martha's face flushed with anger. After everything we've done for you, the introductions, the opportunities, the guidance, this is how you repay us? By turning on us the moment your mother waves her newfound money in your face? That's not what's happening here, I said quietly. Claire and I have had a long overdue conversation about our relationship, a relationship that exists independently of financial considerations on either side. Convenient timing, Martha sniffed, just when she discovers you're wealthy. Claire stood suddenly, her hands clenched at her sides. Stop it. Just stop. Do you hear yourself? You've spent years convincing me that my mother wasn't good enough because she worked with her hands, because she shopped at discount stores, because she couldn't afford to join your precious country club. And now you're suggesting I'm only reconnecting with her because she has money? That says far more about your values than mine. Martha looked stunned by this uncharacteristic outburst. Richard shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Claire, please, let's all calm down, he attempted. I am calm, Claire replied. Calmer than I've been in years, actually, because I finally see things clearly. Mom and I have a lot to work through, years of distance and misunderstandings. But we're going to do that work, together. And if that doesn't fit into your vision of the perfect family, that's your problem, not ours. A heavy silence fell over the room. Martha stared at Claire as if seeing her for the first time. Richard studied his hands, apparently fascinated by his wedding ring. Finally, Martha spoke, her voice eerily controlled. I see we've wasted our time here. Richard, we're leaving now. Martha, he began. Now, Richard. He sighed heavily, but stood. We'll expect an explanation for this. Change of heart, Claire. When you've had time to think clearly again. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years, Claire replied. And we'll talk when I get back from showing Lily where I grew up, where Mom raised me on her own, with more love and integrity than I've shown her in return. Martha's mouth thinned to a hard line, but she said nothing more as she swept from the room, Richard following with an apologetic backward glance. When the door closed behind them, Claire sank back into her chair, trembling slightly. Well, that happened. Are you okay? I asked gently. She laughed shakily. Not really. I've never spoken to them like that before. Martha will make Greg's life miserable at the office. Perhaps, I acknowledged, but sometimes standing up for what's right comes with consequences. I know. She took a deep breath. And it's worth it. I haven't felt this authentic, in years. I reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, Claire. Not because you defended me, though I appreciate that, but because you defended yourself, your values, your autonomy, your right to decide what kind of life you want. Her eyes filled with tears again. I've missed that person, the real me. She's still there, I assured her. A little buried, perhaps, but still there. Claire wiped her eyes and smiled shakily. So, about that butterfly sanctuary visit tonight. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of arrangements, organizing the private sanctuary visit, helping Claire and Greg pack for their early departure, and weathering pointed looks from Martha and Richard at dinner, where they maintained frigid silence toward everyone except Lily. At sunset, I met Claire and Lily at the butterfly sanctuary entrance. Elena had arranged special lighting, soft golden lanterns that illuminated the pathways without disturbing the butterflies preparing to roost for the night. "This is magical," Lily whispered as we entered, her eyes wide with wonder. "Like a fairy garden?" Indeed, in the gentle glow of evening, the sanctuary took on an enchanted quality. Butterflies perched with wings folded on broad leaves and delicate branches. A few late active species still fluttered among the flowers, their colors intensified in the warm light. I led them to a special section I'd asked Elena to prepare. A small table set with a child-sized tea service and butterfly-shaped cookies, surrounded by potted plants specifically chosen to attract butterflies. "A real butterfly tea party," Lily gasped. "Just like in my storybook." We sat together, drinking fruit-infused water from tiny teacups and watching as the day creatures settled and the night creatures began to stir. I pointed out a large moth emerging from its cocoon, its wings slowly unfurling in the gentle evening air. "Different from butterflies, but just as beautiful in their own way," I explained. "Nature offers us endless variation, endless possibilities." Claire watched her daughter's rapt attention, her own expression thoughtful. "Just like people," she said softly. "Beautiful in different ways." As the light faded further, we made our way back through the sanctuary, Lily suddenly yawning despite her protests that she wasn't tired at all. "Time for bed, sweetheart," Claire said gently. "We have an early start tomorrow." "Will I see you?" "Before we go, Grandma Eleanor?" Lily asked anxiously. "Absolutely," I promised. "I'll meet you for breakfast." "And after that? When we get back from Mom's hometown?" I looked at Claire questioningly. She smiled and nodded slightly. "After that, we'll have many visits," I assured Lily. "This is just the beginning." We parted at the resort entrance, Claire giving me a genuine hug that lasted longer than politeness required. "Thank you for today," she whispered, "for giving me another chance." "Always," I replied simply. The next morning, I met them for breakfast on my private terrace, away from Martha and Richard's disapproving glares. Lily was bubbling with excitement about their upcoming adventure, while Greg seemed more relaxed than I'd seen him all week, as if a weight had been lifted. "I've arranged for the resort's private car to take you to the airport," I told them. "And I've booked you into a lovely bed and breakfast in my old neighborhood. The owner is expecting you." Claire's eyes widened. "Mom, you didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," I said simply. "Consider it making up for lost time." As we said our goodbyes, Claire held me tightly. "This isn't an ending," she promised. "It's a new beginning." "I know," I said, believing it for the first time. "For all of us." I watched their car disappear down the winding drive, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The path forward wouldn't be smooth. Martha would continue to resist. Old habits would resurface. Misunderstandings would arise. But the foundation had been rebuilt, stronger and more authentic than before. That afternoon, as Martha and Richard checked out of the resort, a day earlier than planned, I noted, I watched from a discreet distance. Martha's rigid posture and clipped responses to the staff spoke volumes about her state of mind. She had lost something valuable: control over Claire, influence over Lily's upbringing, the social leverage she'd wielded so effectively. But in that loss lay possibility, the possibility of more balanced relationships, of genuine connections not predicated on status or appearances. Whether Martha would ever recognize that remained to be seen. Some people cling to their illusions of control until the bitter end. I returned to my suite and opened my laptop to review design plans for my next resort property. Life would go on with its complexities and challenges. But now, for the first time in nearly a decade, I could see a future where my daughter and granddaughter were genuinely part of my world, and I part of theirs. The truth had finally set us all free. Not the truth about my wealth, which was ultimately just a circumstance, but the deeper truth about what truly matters in life. Not status or possessions or social connections, but love, integrity, and the courage to be authentically ourselves, even when it's difficult. As I worked, my phone chimed with a message from Claire. A photo of Lily standing outside my old apartment building, her expression curious and engaged. The caption read simply, "Learning where we came from, learning who we are." I smiled and set the phone down beside Lily's butterfly drawing. Twin symbols of the past and future reconnected at last. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories. Right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.